Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emmy Boyette, Associate Vice President of Marketing here at the NC Chamber, and I want to thank all of you for attending today's North Carolina Manufacturing Council session. The North Carolina Chamber is so proud to be the state affiliate for the National Association of Manufacturers, and we understand that the manufacturing industry is a cornerstone of our competitiveness here in North Carolina. So just to give you a few stats, the industry overall employs more than 10% of our state citizens, and it's responsible for more than 100 billion in output. So that's part of the reason why we know here at the North Carolina Chamber that what's made in North Carolina makes North Carolina. This is a closed session of the council today, so most of you are already familiar with the North Carolina Manufacturing Council, but just to give you a little bit of extra background, we created this about 2 years ago as an avenue to bring together our state's leaders in the industry to explore solutions to all the challenges that might be holding them back. So we've been talking about things ranging from workforce challenges, supply chain challenges, regulatory issues, you name it, and today we're going to be talking about AI. Additionally, you might not have heard this yet, the North Carolina Chamber recently launched the International Commerce Division to expand global engagement opportunities for North Carolina businesses. So if you're interested in being informed about upcoming events and international partnerships as a result of this new division, please complete the brief survey that you're going to receive in a recap email tomorrow, and that survey is also on our website. Just a few housekeeping items for today before we hear from our speaker. All attendees are muted to avoid any distractions during the presentation. If time permits, and it should, I will answer as many questions as possible at the end. So if you would like to submit a question during the meeting that will eventually be answered at the end, please use the Q&A feature. And if you can't see that on your screen right now, it might be that you have to click a little button that has 3 dots on it at the bottom of your screen. And when you do that, that should pull up the Q&A box for you. So just a reminder, that's how you will submit your questions throughout today's session. We're also recording today's session, and the slides will be shared with you in a recap email that will come to you sometime tomorrow, probably. Okay, now for the good stuff, what you're here for. It is my pleasure to now introduce Mason Whitaker, President and Founder of Volt Technologies. Mason will break down how small and mid-sized manufacturers, distributors, and consumer brands are already using AI to drive real results on the shop floor, in the back office, and across their supply chains. Through real-world case studies, Mason will showcase practical AI applications that brands and manufacturers can implement right now. Intelligent demand forecasting, automated quality inspection, AI-powered ERP workflows, and predictive maintenance. Not theory, not just hype. What we're doing today is sharing proven use cases, lessons learned, and a clear playbook for getting started, which is something that I think has been missing from a lot of conversations on this issue. So Mason, we're so excited to have you. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and the floor is yours.
Of course. Thank you, Emmy, and the whole NC Chamber team for having me. I'm very excited about today's session and a lot of great content here in store for everyone. So like Emmy said, I am the founder and president here at Volt Technologies. We're a Microsoft partner located in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we have a specialty in manufacturing. It's near and dear to my heart, especially in the small and mid-sized space. And really what got me into this role was working with very large companies. I worked with the Fortune 500, businesses that were $100 billion companies deploying the largest of enterprise resource planning systems or ERP systems. So really complex financial, sales, purchasing, manufacturing, inventory systems rolling out all across the world. We had a very large scale transformation where we were doing rollouts of the most complex kind within just a couple months and sometimes even just a month. And I thought if we could do this for the largest of businesses in such a short time period, then why can't we do this for the small and mid-sized space? So that's the reason I started Volt Technologies. was really to bring our understanding of enterprise deployments of very large scale and very complex and high tech technologies to the small mid-sized space, with really a focus on manufacturing and distribution customers. So more of what we call the big, hairy, scary in technology or IT projects. So my background is really heavily on the technical side. I spent a lot of time as a software developer, so I like to say a recovering software developer now, with the rise of agentic coding, not doing too much hands-on programming anymore, and started my first AI company over a decade ago now. So everything kind of coming full circle with my curiosity around business process and deep understanding of the technology has been very tremendous for our customers, and our whole team is able to support very complex manufacturers and be able to roll out this technology in a pretty fantastic way. So you guys can find out more about us or reach out kind of at a later point. But really what we're here to talk about is how we can roll out AI in a very effective way for small and mid-sized manufacturers, and really get into the nitty-gritty of what are the specific use cases that we've rolled out for customers and are in the process of rolling out for some customers, and what is the ROI that we've seen on that. And so I always like to start this out with a change in mindset. AI has been around for a long time. Actually, in the 60s, it was really even coming out full force with Alan Turing and some of the kind of origin story of the godfathers of AI. This is not a new technology. And we've been doing machine learning in the industry for a very long time. I started one of my first companies doing computer vision with IBM Watson, of classifying images for the healthcare industry and understanding what skin tags and things like that were classified as. And this was a long time ago. And now AI really is not just there for enterprises who have huge budgets to be able to throw a lot of money at training and fine-tuning a model. Now it's generally available for really everyone. So no longer do you have to have tons of budget to be able to enable some pretty incredible scenarios for your company. So I want you all to have that takeaway leaving today's session, that it doesn't take a lot of dollars to be able to implement some pretty impactful solutions. And customers are doing this today, both in the back office with financials and the sales and purchasing, but then also actually out on the shop floor and doing this with real inventory transactions. So how we're going to break this down today, I'm going to show you the good stuff right up front, get you guys really excited about the use cases that we've been able to implement for customers across different departments, kind of starting in the back office, then making our way down into the warehouse and the shop floor, just to get the wheels turning. And these are just some of the use cases that we've implemented. There are hundreds and thousands of scenarios that are out there. And I've got some time in the end where I'm hopefully going to gather some questions and some feedback from you all, and I can help you with your specific scenario. But we'll show that by department. And then we'll go into what we call the levels of AI. It's not just an easy path of just jumping all the way to automating your entire business with AI agents. It doesn't work that way. You have to do this in a structural path, starting with level 1 of the foundation, level 2 with inquiry, and level 3 with autonomous. And we'll break that down. And we are a Microsoft partner. We believe it's the best technology that's out there on the market today for people to adopt AI into their practice, into their business, and do this really in an enterprise fashion. So I'm going to show you some of the technologies and talk through kind of the different levels that there are and how you can apply Microsoft technology to each of those levels. Really agnostic to the frontier models. The models are great. They're getting better and better, Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, and the likes. But really harnessing that technology inside of your enterprise. How do you do that? And I'm going to show the framework for that. And then I'm going to give you some tactical takeaways of how you can get started today. So leaving the meeting, what are the 3 things that I can start doing to be able to get you going on this journey and start getting you to level 1 or going to level 2 or even advancing to level 3, just depending on where you're at. So a lot to cover today. I'm really excited about going through this all. So let's start with the scenarios, the good stuff. And we're going to start with a story, and it's about a tortilla distributor. That actually deals with a whole lot of cash, a lot of accounts receivable and settlement of those invoices that they have. And we worked with a company that had a bunch of drivers that would go out, drop off tortillas at their customers. This was for mainly mom and pop restaurants or for grocery stores. And so those drivers are collecting cash from those customers, writing down the customer name and the number, like the amount of cash, but they're not always tying to the invoice that that customer's paying for. The customer's just paying for tortillas and giving them cash. They're not really going and referencing a specific invoice. So when all that cash comes to the back office, the team there, the three AR clerks that are processing all of this cash, their role is to take the cash from the driver and mark down the customer that it came from. So this accounts for about half of their day, collecting that cash, processing that cash, recording down how much they've been able to capture. And then the second half of the day is them going through all of their emails, their Teams messages, their transcripts with salespeople, as well as the customers themselves in a variety of different languages, Spanish, English, and different formats that this could be sent to them. And they're basically doing a form of digital archaeology, going through and digging for what invoice does this cash from this customer apply to do that settlement, so you can know what is still outstanding for a given customer. Very important task, and it takes a lot of time. It takes about half their day, about 4 hours of that day, going out and finding this, the invoice that these things should apply to. Traditional automation would not have been able to solve this problem. This is an area that you can't really put in place a deterministic piece of code that is going to be able to account for every single scenario that a salesperson or a customer is going to be able to inform that accounts receivable clerk of what invoice that cash should apply to. So it can come in all these different formats, all through email, all through calls, text messages even. Really, the context is everywhere. And what we saw is that this is a good opportunity for implementing an agent. An agent is able to understand and reason over large amounts of context and extrapolate and reason information from that context to then output a structured output to then be able to apply. So what we saw is those three AR clerks were spending half that day, collecting and recording, and the second half they were applying. And so we built an agent. It took us about 30 minutes to build this agent on the upfront. And then a few weeks after we first built it to actually get it refined and adopted. The change management of these agents is certainly the hardest part. Building agents is honestly the easy part. It's getting the data and all of the level one stuff, right, that we'll talk through. But we implemented this agent in just a few weeks, and we were able to see that it went down from 4 hours per AR clerk, their second half of the day, to really just an hour in that second half of the day. This saved them about 3 hours a day per person and over a year of processing time. So simple math for you. And we were able to do this in just a couple of weeks. So the ROI on this is very straightforward. And now those clerks are able to focus on, hey, what customers are outstanding with us and who is still yet to pay us, and they can focus on the collection activities, and the receivables have never been better. So a very straightforward example of implementing an agent to reason over the context that's inside of their Microsoft tenant to be able to extrapolate things that used to always take a human to do. And instead, now you can deploy an agent to do it. These were impossible tasks that used to not be able to be performed with just deterministic code, or you'd have to spend millions of dollars in order to write all of the different scenarios that were possible in order to get the output that the agent is able to do now. And just to do it in a few weeks is pretty tremendous. So that's one example on the back office. And then just a couple more from a financial standpoint. There's a lot of cases around three-way matching, from having your purchase invoice and your physical receipt, and then what the customer or what the vendor actually sends you. Doing that matching process all the way and surfacing those exceptions based on thresholds for review. This eliminates a lot of manual reconciliation of taking the physical documents, stapling them together, reviewing it, seeing if they're over or mismatching. You're not actually getting, invoice for what you physically got, maybe more, maybe less, whatever those thresholds are at, and then surfacing that to you and alerting that to you. Using things like optimal character recognition to scan these documents is one great use case that we've seen. And then GL anomaly detection, having the ability to look at your chart of accounts and all your financial transactions that are happening on a daily basis and scan through things for things that may be out of whack. Maybe we never post directly to this account, but all of a sudden we're having these large transactions hit in this way. That could be something that's off, or duplicate entries, or things that are kind of mismatching between the ledger and the sub ledger for those that are familiar with ERP concepts. So catching those errors proactively is something you can use these tools for pretty easily to point an AI at your ledger entries and then be able to analyze and reason over the information that's there to flag some of these exceptions for you for review. And then, of course, cash flow forecasting. This can get very complex and deep with statistical modeling. And it used to take a whole lot of power to really get these things to work well. And you'd have to fine tune it over time. Now, with the latest models, these activities are much easier to do, and pointing things at all of your receivables, all of your expected payables, all of your current cash on hand, looking at things like how quickly do my customers typically pay me? How fast do I typically pay my vendors? Bringing all these things together to understand your current cash position and what future cash position can be, and then alerting you of those things that, hey, you're getting up into a point where you're actually going to be in a negative position, and ways to avoid that. So there's a lot of great use cases that we've seen implemented with customers within the Microsoft framework. So there's a ton more scenarios, I'll say, on the finance and the back office side. These, of course, are just kind of some key ones to get those wheels turning about all the possibilities that are available for you. And then on the sales side, there are so many exciting scenarios that we've implemented and you can implement yourself. And one is the order creation. So with a lot of our customers, they are still taking phone calls, taking emails, manually going through, parsing that information, understanding it, and then keying it into their order management system or their ERP or system of record. So this actual receiving, extraction of the information, validating it against the customer if they're allowed to buy it, or does the customer have the available inventory for that item? Is this the right price? All of those things go into the human judgment, now can be pre-built into an agent to be able to reason over and create those sales orders for you within your system of record. And this is actually one that Microsoft releases off the shelf to customers. So this is within Dynamics 365 Business Central, which is one of the main products that we deploy for our customers, being a primary ERP systems integrator. And the way that this works is that you'll get a request in from a customer in a variety of different manners, but primarily coming through an email inbox. So let's say it's a shared email inbox like sales@yourcompany.com. When a customer sends in an email in a variety of different formats, in PDF and just the body of the email, or maybe Excel, it's going to extract that email and then create a task for one of your salespeople to review. Do you need to actually go and generate a quote for that customer? Or maybe you skip that step. Maybe you're familiar with this customer enough. You can go ahead and create that order based on what they're asking you to do, and then you can send that back to them. But every single step along this journey, you have a human in the loop, which is on the right-hand side here that you'll see, where the human on your side, the order processor, is approving things as they're going back to the customer. You don't want things like incorrect pricing or maybe bad inventory to get sent to a customer. So you always have that capability to have human in the loop every step along the way. And the better your data and better your process, the easier this is going to be. That way you can move faster and approve more things that the agent is creating. And I'll get to that here in just a little bit as well. But through this process, you're now leaning on the agent to create quotes for you based on pulling out the data from your ERP, looking at available inventory. Maybe if they asked for one specific item, but there's not that one available, you're allowed to recommend a substitute item that is a similar item for them. You can even build that logic into there. And then it goes back to the customer as a quote. They're able to review that quote and say, yes, this is great. I want to accept this. It moves back over to you as an order processor and says, great, do we want to move forward with the order? It can create the order in the system, and then you're able to send that confirmation officially to the customer. This is an off-the-shelf process that Microsoft has deployed for customers as a bottled up agent. But of course, you're thinking, well, my customers, they send orders in through EDI, they send orders in through e-commerce, whether B2C e-com sites or B2B e-com sites. Every scenario is different. And that's where a partner like us comes in, where we can help tailor these off-the-shelf agents for you so you can take advantage of all the pre-built stuff that Microsoft has deployed across hundreds of thousands of customers for your own business, but tailored in the right way that's specific for you all. And so this is a really great one that we've seen implemented across a ton of our customers. And a number of other great sales scenarios are really on the more marketing upfront side. I'd say that we see a lot of really exciting scenarios we've implemented with customers, like reorder intelligence. So you know that certain customers bought with you last year at this time, but they haven't actually bought with you again at this time. Let's say you're a very seasonal business, so it can triage and help you understand, when you should be reaching out to specific customers, and then personalizing all that outreach based on the context of what you have been communicating with that customer recently. If you've been to an event with them recently, if you've had some sort of, like offsite, or if you've been emailing with them recently, the agents are able to understand that and hyper personalize that outreach so that reorder intelligence is spot on, and you're able to approve it much faster when you have that human in the loop step. And then the quote follow-up, like in the last process, you have all the quotes that you're sending. Sometimes those quotes are going to be expiring, and sometimes that the customer just has been too busy to reach back out to you. You do have this process where you can escalate those stale quotes. You can surface them back up to a prospect, and you can really get more detail into those outgoing quotes by running an agent reasoning over that the transactions you're creating there. And one of the ones that's really exciting is this qualification agent. You can build into a skill that understands the ways that you really like to engage with specific customers. Like, I like ones that are local, and I like ones that have this budget range. I like ones that, are involved in this community. Like, whatever your qualification is, you can detail that out into a skill, feed it to an agent. And whenever somebody drops a, request on your website, an inbound form, or sends an email, kicks off the qualification agent, researches that customer on your behalf, understands, like, is this going to be a good customer for you or not, and can give you some scoring based on like your preset qualification criteria, and then tell you all of the information about this customer, where you've last communicated with them based on your CRM information. And then within the span of just a couple minutes, you're going to have way more intel on that prospective customer than if you spent all night going and researching them. This is incredible for a sales motion, where you can immediately give that customer a call and say, hey, I do remember you from this last event that we had, and you also reached out to us on these other times. I'm really glad we're getting back engaged here. That homework is now able to be bottled up into an agent and done on a trigger. And this is super valuable. The time to close a customer, it increases dramatically if you're following up with them very quickly. So this is a huge enabler for our customers on their sales motion. Obviously, a ton more scenarios that you can automate and implement from a sales standpoint, with having rich CRM data and things of that nature, which I'll get into the data side here in a little bit. And on the purchasing side, there's a ton as well. So just the same way on the order intake from the sales side, you have that same process on the purchase side. So whenever you're getting an invoice from your vendor, you can capture that invoice, use optimal character recognition to read through whatever document or email they're sending you, extract out the information, like what are the items or services that I'm purchasing, and then map that into your system of record to then identify, here's the items, here's the quantities, here's the requested ship date or requested delivery date. And then now let's actually put that in the system, match it against what my order was with them originally, and then flag any of those variances. So it's going to surface this up to you, and then be able to route things for you as well. And this is also another off-the-shelf agent that Microsoft provides inside of the Dynamics 365 suite. So same concept on the sales side. When you have your orders coming inbound through a shared sales inbox, you can have the same thing set up with an accounts payable inbox, where you have a vendor sending you an invoice, or one of your employees is just forwarding you an invoice from a vendor, hopefully that you knew about that expense coming in. And then it gets routed into the agent inside of the system, where it uses that OCR, reads through, understands that email and that context, It'll extract it. It'll identify that vendor if you've used them before. If you haven't used them before, it'll recommend to create a vendor. This is where your purchasing supervisor is able to say, yes, use this vendor, or no, let's create a new vendor. It's able to draft all those invoice details and then finalize that invoice and input it into the system. All of this, what you're seeing now is every step of the way, you have the potential for having a human in the loop. And certainly we recommend when you get to that level 3, the autonomous side, that is when you are starting to always have human in the loop. And as you trust it more and more and more, and you ensure you're refining and training those agents, then you're able to start letting go more, and you're able to start letting the agent run more on your behalf, and checking in more intermittently. So we always recommend that human in the loop up front so you can fine tune and train over time, just like you would with a new hire that you're bringing in. You wouldn't bring in a new hire and say, all right, go and do your purchasing job. And like, what does that mean? What system am I using? What are our processes? All those things like you want to be building into that agent as well. And then a couple other areas that we see with more inventory customers. This is a really exciting one. Aged inventory is something that is very common with our customers. Things that are maybe slow movers or no movers sometimes. And it could be due to a variety of issues like quality issues or maybe seasonality. Nobody is like the trend isn't there for them to actually be purchasing that inventory. And of course, you could run that whole scan of understanding what items are out on my shop floor or at my warehouse that have been sitting for too long, and then suggest a write-off for you if they've especially if they're expired goods or things of that nature. But the thing that is different now with agents is now you can understand why. So getting that report of having these items sitting out on your warehouse and they've been out there for a long period of time, they're slow or no moving. But now you can identify with an agent, the reason this is slow or no moving is because the customer that actually used to purchase this with us has now gone out of business. You can identify these things proactively because you can have an agent analyze the slow and no moving reports to give you some context around why those things are slow and no moving. So using the typical ERP reports that you can output, and then taking that output and using an agent to go further to help you understand deeper the reason behind things is a really good use case. And we see this a lot. So this is certainly a really great one that we've seen. And you can see this on not just aged inventory, but also items, older items. Maybe you've turned off certain items or blocked certain items. Why have you blocked these items? Well, let's go and use the agent to go and investigate. Maybe the customer has gone bankrupt, or maybe they've gone a different route with a different supplier. So you're able to get more detail and use these agents to gather a lot more context so you can make well-informed decisions internally. And then one of our favorites that we've implemented a number of times now with companies is the AI-assisted bill of material creation. So this is for the manufacturing, the shop floor. You have all of the data inside of your enterprise resource planning system or your shop floor manufacturing execution system, and you understand the material, the amount it cost, the quantity, the weights, the dimensions. You understand the route or the operations that it takes to take a raw material and turn it into a subcomponent, combine that subcomponent with another to make a finished good. You understand all of these things, and you fine-tuned out every step that it takes to create an item of yours. But now you're wanting to create a new item. Let's say I want to create this widget now in red instead of blue like we have previously. You can now use agents to reason over the data inside of your ERP, like your bill of material and your route, to create those new bill of materials based on its understanding of your previous data. This meaning that you can now save a ton of time on that bill of material creation and be able to go to market faster because you're able to iterate and understand that, okay, if we add in these 2 pouches now to our product, then what is going to be the additional cost that this is going to take from an operations standpoint? So now you're able to see, oh, well, actually, it wouldn't be valuable for us to add those things in because it's going to add a lot of complexity, or this would be very valuable. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to create these much faster and building these out based on similar items that you've already built before. So having that data there for an agent to reason over, gather context on, and then do things on your behalf, like perform actions like creating a bill of material or creating a route, is a huge value add that we've seen for lots of customers. So there's a few more on the manufacturing side. These are exciting ones because before AI agent implementation, we were doing things like the voice enabled and the subcontracted, all deterministic code. And it took a long time. And now we're able to do this with agents. So for subcontracted production, there's a lot of back and forth. You have a purchase order and a sales order going back and forth, or a transfer order, moving inventory back and forth if you're still holding ownership of that inventory at your third-party manufacturer. So in this, you have all this back and forth, and you're having to update your production order as well. You can take that email inbox just the same way that you saw on the sales order and the purchase order or the purchase invoice. You can now route those to be able to update steps within your production order. So understanding when vendors are done with certain operations on your product, it can go and update those operations within your production order to give you a better lead time of when something's going to be completed. This is especially helpful for customers that have multi-stop or multi-site production, where you're sewing or you're cutting up front, and then you need to sew somewhere else, and then you need to dye somewhere else, and then you need to package somewhere else. Having all that multi-site orchestration, there's a lot of POs and SOs going back and forth, or a lot of transfer orders at least, so a lot of documentation that then an agent can reason over and control that portion of your supply chain. This used to be one of the hardest components to implement with ERP, but now with these agents, it's made it a lot more efficient. And then with voice-enabled shop agents, about 6 or 7 years ago, I built out a voice pick system with a customer that was, they had this headset on walking through the warehouse. They'd pick up a box and say, picking item 1, 2, 3, putting to container 3, 2, 1, quantity 7. And then it would feed that back into their system of record and say, this is the operation that was just performed, and move the good from the one place they picked it up from to the conveyor. That integration was pretty time consuming and very thorough, and took a lot of dollars to be able to build out. This is for a very large organization. Now you can implement these voice agents at scale without having to teach it, how to really run, the voice. It knows naturally, using the, voice transcription function and reasoning to be able to understand what you're trying to do. And hooking something up with a MCP connection through a voice agent is pretty powerful when you connect that with your system of record. So now people on the floor are able to communicate with the system with hands-free, right? They're moving goods around, or even, cutting, sewing, moving goods, and they're able to then communicate with the system and be able to report things as finished, report an operation as complete, or even move goods around within the warehouse. So pretty exciting what's now possible with a voice-enabled shop floor. And then the last piece on the quality side, there is so much documentation that goes into quality management. I mean, it is the primary thing with quality, is having documentation written out, specs on exactly did this conform or not, or non-conformance, reports that are coming when things are not to spec, quarantining them within a quality location within your warehouse. All of that now can be pre-prompted with an agent, where it can trigger through sample checks of, you need to take a picture of this and analyze using computer vision if it's conforming to this or not. And it speeds up that process for someone to be able to go through and quickly create these non-conformance reports, and to be able to segment this all into a central place within your system of record. So very exciting use case that we've been seeing more and more of people wanting automation within the quality space. So I know that was a ton on all of the different scenarios. This is just a drop in the bucket of the potential scenarios that are possible, as well as ones that we've implemented with customers. But I really wanted to get the mind turning on what was possible, and start to have you thinking across your entire business, not just one area, but your entire business, on how you can implement AI. So now you're thinking, all right, these are great, Mason. Like, I would love to implement an agent for, that specific scenario, but how do I get there? Like, I don't really have the data there, or my data isn't really reliable, or maybe I don't trust my people to run agents, or maybe I'm scared of the security side of it. There are so many questions that I'm sure that you're having right now. And my goal is to walk you through a very simple framework for you to level up to get to that final level of the autonomous agent side of things. It really starts with these three levels. If you remember anything coming out of this session today, I will want you to remember this. And the level one is the foundation. You have to get your house in order before you can do anything else. And this is the hardest piece. This is 95% of the work right here. And so it's easy to put it on a PowerPoint here with one little step here, but it is certainly the hardest piece. And I hear a lot of people say, I feel like I'm at level 0. Well, you're not alone. A lot of people are in this same sort of transformation journey as you. But then level 2 is the skilling and the inquiry AI. So this is the ability to skill your people and use these tools to be able to ask questions and get answers, reliable answers. That's the key, accurate answers. And then once you're past that point where you have reliable, accurate answers coming back from AI, then you can use that inquiry to then go and have agents do something based on that understanding. If you try to jump to the level 3, full autonomous, like having agents that act on your behalf, and you don't have your data right, you don't have the inquiry trusted, where you actually know that's accurate responses coming back, how do you expect an agent to be able to act in the right way on your behalf? So it's absolutely key that you do this in this order. And I'm going to kind of walk through how you can start taking advantage of each step of this and kind of some more details on the specific technology behind it as well. So the foundation, the most important piece. I mean, you cannot do agents until you get your foundation right. And if there's cracks in your foundation, you're going to see cracks in the agents that you try to deploy. So it's really exciting to be able to try to jump to the autonomous agents. We would absolutely highly recommend that you focus on getting the foundation right, and then you're going to be able to move and take advantage of agents in a much faster way. Agents are actually easy. They're actually really easy to deploy. What is actually the hard piece is getting everything surrounding that right, the security, the people to process the data and everything. So starting with the data, what does that mean? Having clean and accurate data. If you have improper lead times on your vendors or on your items of when you're going to actually produce something, and then a customer asks you, when is something going to be available for me? And an agent goes into your system of record and pulls a lead time that says 2 years, and goes to the customer and says, it's going to take 2 years. But you as the human, you're thinking, it is not going to take 2 years. This is something that we would be able to do in a week. Well, your data is telling the agent that, and it's not the agent that's wrong. It's actually your data that's wrong. So getting that data cleaned up and accurate so it can be that source of truth for agents to be able to operate is extremely important. And having a single source of truth. If you have multiple different disparate systems, whether it's having an OMS, like an order management system, and then your ERP, an enterprise resource planning system, and then a PLM, your product lifecycle management system, and then a WMS, and then an MES, and then all these different systems, and they all have their own version of the story. And then you add an agent on top and say, I want you to go and find my lead time. And it looks at all these different systems. How can you expect an agent to understand that? Just like if you were to bring on a new hire and tell them to go pull something for you, like a lead time for a specific item, and you give them 10 systems, then how are they going to know which one is that source of truth, especially if everything is disparate and different across all of them? So it's important to centralize this just the same way as it has been for your people in your organization. It's important for you to do it for agents in the future. It is much easier for agents to reason over things in a single system than it is to go into 10 different systems in 10 different ways as well. The integration there into the agents. It's much easier to bring it all into one. And this allows you to update something once and know that it's going to be used as the source of truth in real time for agents as they move forward and execute. And a key thing with this is purging out that historical data. If you have, I am a victim of this. I'm sure everybody else is as well. I think I even did it on this PowerPoint, having all of the different versions of V1, V2, V3, final date, all these different versions, and you're storing all of that, and you have different records in your different systems that all have different versions. How is AI going to be able to reason over that data to understand or document to understand which one actually is the one it should be using? So it's really important to be purging that historical data and then to be updating only with the latest and only giving access to AI of that most up-to-date data. Super important. We've got some really good tactical ways for you to do that without having to take all of your legacy stuff and clean up literally everything. We work with lots of companies that are 100 years old, 100-year-old plus companies that have tons of data. And so it is definitely, don't worry, it's not as hard as it seems. And then on the process side, if you go and you tell an agent, I want you to do my job, it is going to have no idea what you do. It is not going to be able to go and do your job. In order for an agent to understand what you want it to do, you have to have that very clearly documented and standardized. So I'm talking SOPs, standard operating procedures. Having documentation of how your business operates is extremely important. I used to call it the entrepreneur operating system, having a big binder of all of the different processes in your business that you can go through and say, okay, we need to have this type of customer, this order. All right, let me go to that place in my binder, and then here is that process for that. If you have that available, then your agent is going to be able to reason over your processes and understand what it should then do. So when you say, I want you to operate as a purchasing manager, it's able to go, okay, well, here is all my purchasing manager SOPs, and now I can ingest that into my context, and now I can operate on that behalf. If you don't have that, then how do you expect an agent to do that? It's just like hiring a new hire and then giving them a loan office and saying, you now run our purchasing. Oh, well, what system are we in? Like, what do I do on a daily basis? Like, what do I do? You have to train it, you have to document, and then you have to measure it as well. And then people. If you don't think that your organization is organized or aligned in the right way, then AI is going to have no idea who it needs to reach out to for specific decisions. It's not going to know context of what the relationships or associations are within your business or within your customer and your vendor networks as well. It is super important to document all of that stuff, understand your team as well as who I am, and documenting your role and things like that. So that way that is able to be given as context to these agents. And then identifying those people that are tech savvy, that are excited about this technology, that will be your champions for the future, and enabling them with the tools to be successful. There is a lot going on within the overall ecosystem of people moving around to different companies because they're getting blocked at their current organization because they're saying, I am not getting any access to any tool that I want to because my company is not letting me because they're afraid of this level 1 stuff or haven't figured it out. And so they're looking at other places to even go so they can upskill themselves. You want to find those people, you want to enable those people, you want to build champions, you build those champions, and it will disseminate to the rest of the team. You'll start to build a culture of people that are champions around the technology. And then the last piece, and I put this here intentionally as the last piece for the foundation, because you have to get your data right, your process right, your people right, and then it's the technology. I actually, even being in technology for so long, I view it as the least important step in this, even though it is like one of the primary enablers for the rest of it. But having your systems set up in the right way that is accessible to AI. So if your system right now, like not talking actual silicon, if your system is paper-based and I write on this Post-it note and I give it to Janet and that's how she knows to go and do something for me, or it is in someone's head where, well, I just have to go ask Janet, sorry, I'm picking on any Janet out there, that I have to ask Janet about what are our lead times for this given item. Well, like that is not going to be able to be ingested by an agent to be able to then go and perform something for you. So having a system that is documented and is used and accessible by AI. So having a modern system that has REST APIs available, so application programming interfaces, or even better, model context protocol enabled, which is an absolute key for the modern age. And then having that central source of truth that can be integrated across these different models and the different platforms is absolutely critical. So figuring out this piece is the most important piece. Do this before you do anything. What you'll realize is when you look through each of these different pieces on here and you say, well, I don't have our processes documented. Well, all of our stuff is on-prem. Well, we don't have APIs available for our current technology stack. Well, when you try to implement agents, it's going to cost you a whole lot more money to be able to enable agents than it would if you had this stuff right. It is possible to do, but it is not the right method. It's better to go through this foundational process here. And once you have this right, your data right, process right, your people right, and your technology right, then you're able to take advantage of one of the exciting areas, which is the inquiry AI. So this is the ability to ask things about your data. It is able to, it's the thing that people think of when they think of AI right now. They think of, oh, I can ask ChatGPT a question, or I can ask Claude a question and I get something back. It's super, super valuable, but only valuable if you have your data and everything right. So that way, when it goes in and reasons, it's able to pull the right data for you and you can trust it. These models, when you look at the latest benchmarks, are around 70% on task completion across pretty generalized tasks, whether it's like arithmetic or performing humanities last exam or some of these benchmarks that are available out there for these frontier models. But they're still getting it wrong 20 to 30% of the time. But you need to have that good data in there so that way it can actually give you the right answer and can be correct for you. So that is where you need to focus to be able to get to this point where you can reason over your data and say, when was the last time this customer ordered from us? And then you're able to reliably get that information and you know that it's coming from the source of truth. It has the citation on there and you can see that it's being pulled from a reliable system of record. And then being able to inquire really over anything within your business. How do we perform this process when I have a new vendor that I'm onboarding? Well, here's the SOP that's been documented within this SharePoint or Teams site, and then it pulls that up for you within inline in chat, and then you're able to read over it and then train your new hire on it, for example. Once you're getting to this point where you're able to inquire over your data and you're able to get reliable information back, that's really when the fun part begins, because now you can start training all of your team. You can start enabling all your team members on what we call the productivity AI here. So this is where your team now can rely on asking questions over systems of record or over context like emails, Teams messages, things like that. And they're able to get reliable information back. That's where a lot of ROI comes in. What we're seeing is around like 25 to 30% increase in overall productivity for working professionals. But that's even just the beginning. That's even just the kind of the overall general reasoning and general inquiry. And once you have this right, once you're able to ask a question, reason, have the AI reason over that data, and then come back to you with a response and you can trust it, then you're able to take that same process and now have an agent go and perform a process on your behalf because you're trusting the data that's coming out of it, and then you can enable the process for it to perform something. And that's when you get into this level 3 here, which is the fun part, right? This is where all the hype is over right now. This is the full autonomous agents. This is what everyone is dangling the carrot and saying, like, this is going to be the future of everything. And so a lot of people are very excited about that, and certainly should be. It's very exciting. And the ROI is honestly, in some instances, is exponential. Our team of software developers and software engineers, we're seeing the likes of 5x productivity on some of our best team members. And so that is also coming across all departments. Agentic coding is not the only thing these agents are going to do. Agentic information processing is actually coming. But these full autonomous agents, when you're able to ask, get a reasoned answer back that you trust, then you can have it go and perform something on your behalf. That is when you get to this final level 3. And then there is a lot of fun stuff to enable at this point of multi-agent orchestration systems, or ensuring that you have like fine-tuned context windows for sub-agents, and stringing together agents to then perform processes like, okay, I get the order in, I ingest it through OCR, it drops it in here, that triggers another agent to then go and notify our team down on the shop floor to pick it, but here's all of the information that it brings through. So you're able to start chaining these together and it becomes a whole lot more fun. So that's really that level 3, that's the tip of the iceberg right now that everybody's shooting for. In order to get to that game-changing technology, you have to go through the levels. So before you have all the manual checking of emails, you're asking Janet, sending her post-it notes, and then you're manually writing everything down or putting it into like an on-prem system or something. And then the level two is that now your organization is modernized, your data is right, your people are organized, your processes are organized, your technology is accessible by AI. Then you're able to ask really fun things like, I want to understand like what our forecast is going to be for next month. Use your understanding of our organization to project out like our cash flow, and getting that and being able to trust it. That's absolutely key. And then once you get to that point of being able to trust it, then you can trust an agent to take that information to go and do something for you. Of course, always recommended at the beginning to do human in the loop for these autonomous agents. So before sending an email to a customer automatically, you are having that email route through you and read over it and understand the information is accurate. And that way you can be accountable when you send it to that customer or that vendor. Your manager is not going to care if an AI sent it or if you sent it. If it's wrong, it's your fault. So the accountability piece is absolutely key there. But having that foundation right, the data right, then the inquiry trusted, then you can move into the full autonomous and take advantage of all the fun scenarios that you saw previously. So those are the levels. That's how you work your way through becoming an AI-enabled organization. But you can see I haven't really been talking about much of the actual technology, like the different pieces that you can truly enable in this. I've said a couple times like ChatGPT and Claude and things, but I've been pretty agnostic as far as the actual technology. Here are the technologies that we would recommend, or the framework that we would recommend for when you're exploring how to do this. The first thing is Microsoft 365. It's a pretty obvious one. I think 95% of Fortune 500 companies are using Microsoft for their productivity tools, and very likely that you are as well. So the Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, OneDrive, really all of these tools, those are enabled on this platform that has seamless connection into all of the different new agentic capabilities that every frontier model company has released, because Microsoft is not really a model company, they're a platform company. They are invested in all these different areas of Anthropic and OpenAI, and they want those companies to win so they can take advantage of their models for all of the rest of the technology stack. So that Microsoft 365 tool is absolutely recommended. And then a modern ERP like Dynamics 365, Business Central for specifically small and mid-sized organizations, absolutely would recommend this. Having finance, sales, purchasing, all of your whole supply chain of manufacturing, warehousing, all the service components, fixed asset management, really everything underneath an umbrella of business application. You'll find this inside of Dynamics 365 Business Central. So core technology there to build a single source of truth, so your agents don't have to reason over 10 different systems, WMS, PLM, ERP, really everything. You can pull that all into one. And then having a modern CRM that has all of the kind of more messy customer data like telemetry around website signals or intent signals, or email marketing campaigns and things like that inside of Dynamics 365 Sales. So this is a great product that you're able to take advantage of to track every customer interaction that you have, all the events that you have, all of the lead to opportunity to quote to close process. And then business intelligence reporting with Power BI is an incredible tool that embeds across the entire Microsoft stack. So that way you have reporting enabled throughout and is built as an IQ or a context layer for all your agents to be able to reason over all this data. So bringing it into this central source of truth. And then on top of this, so you have your foundation, right? That core Microsoft platform. Then this gets fun when you have the inquiry AI tools. Microsoft Copilot, I want to break the frame here for a lot of you. Copilot is not a model. Copilot is a platform. Copilot is able to use all of the latest models. There's over 13,000 models that are available and rising. There's tons of them always released that Microsoft has on its Azure stack that gets embedded into Copilot. So Claude, ChatGPT, really all the latest models, Grok and everything you can have embedded inside of Copilot to then integrate it across all of that foundation that you have on the level one side. And that's the big enabler. That's where you're able to have all of the access of the frontier model capabilities, but within the security and purview of the Microsoft ecosystem, using all of the platform technology that creates this really this single hub of your enterprise agent architecture. And then you have ChatGPT and Claude really as those frontier, and then even tools inside of your ERP, like Copilot embedded throughout processes within Dynamics 365 Business Central. And then you get to the autonomous agent side. So most of the agents that we're seeing are either first-party agents, which are the ones that I showed. Some of the ones that I showed you were like the sales agent. Microsoft offers this out of off the shelf or out of the box. And then the purchasing agent, same thing. That would be first party coming from a vendor, which gets deployed. But then there's also the third party agents, which is a vendor who is just building these custom for you. Like we build custom agents that we actually resell to our customers, for specific industries that we work with a lot. And then you have custom built agents. And this is probably the best use case, is building custom agents on Microsoft's Foundry platform that will fine tune specific scenarios for you. So you can integrate all of those use cases you saw previously, but have all your custom business logic built into that and all the context built into that as well. So this is the Foundry stuff is pro code, so more of a developer experience. But for the non-developers, you have Microsoft Copilot Studio. And this is really more of a natural language interface of building out agents, where you can describe, I want you to reason over this email inbox and then go into my system of record and create this record based on the information you're getting inside of that email. And then after that, that record is created, I want you to drop a Teams document or a SharePoint document into this site. So that way my team can see that something has been created. And we have kind of a shared reference there. You talk that through, you transcribe that process. Copilot Studio takes that and builds the agent for you. You do not have to be a developer to build these agents anymore. That's why I was saying in the beginning, agents are the easy part. The change management is the hard part, and the foundation stuff is the hard part. The data, the process, the people side is the hard part. And so this is the framework that we really that we recommend to customers. And I've kind of touched on a lot of this, but this is I'll speed through. I want to definitely get to a lot more of the questions and some of the Q&A portion of this. But you want to start with the core ERP, Business Central, and then you want to look at your productivity tools. So Microsoft 365, that gives you a seamless, interoperable platform that hosts all your data that then you can sit agents on top of, and it can reason over in a very seamless way. If you have disparate productivity tools, like let's say you have Microsoft and you have G Suite or something like that, it's going to be much harder for an agent to understand what the heck you're doing. So you want to be centralizing this stuff so an agent can understand exactly how to get in and how to reason over your data. So that's the level one side. Then the level two, Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude. A lot of these tools are available. We use all of them, and we're an Anthropic partner, for example, with Claude, and have used use ChatGPT internally as well. There are purposes for all of the frontier models, and they have pros and cons. Happy to talk through like what the best would be for your specific scenario, like on what model is going to be better than another, which one has better token efficiency, for example, which is cost efficiency, because these things are not free to use the compute. So the Inquiry AI with Microsoft Copilot, bringing in all those models, all the great things about each model, embedding it into Copilot and using the platform, that is the recommended. And then the autonomous agents, Azure Foundry being the pro code side, Copilot Studio being that natural language agent development side, and that transcription to agent function I was talking through. And then you have custom agents, more pro code that you can manage with Claude or even the new ChatGPT agents as well. So that's the framework. But now I want to talk through really how the technology stack is evolving. So you can see kind of these levels here, but this is the real big piece that I want to cover. Previously, the technology stack used to be system of record, which is the ERP, the CRM, and then like your core business application data. And then you had people. People were the integration layer into the system of record. If somebody sent an email, then a person would read over it. They'd reason about what they should do. They'd go into the system of record and they'd perform that given action. Essentially, you can think of it as people as middleware between the process, a business process. And now what you have is people injected at all layers in here. But starting with the system of record upward, you have all the context that now is surrounding the sort of system of records. This is where all the people are interacting. There's relationships, there's organizations, customer vendor networks, there's emails, Teams messages, phone calls, all this stuff. This used to, always be there, but it was never thought about in a real intentional way because we didn't have a big reason to capture all of this context. Now with agents, it's very important for us to capture all this context. Like we're recording this meeting right now. We're going to be able to take this context and use this to generate assets afterwards. Like I'm sure the team will be able to take advantage of that after this. And so managing that context in a really effective way is very important. And there's not a lot of people that are thinking about this. They're thinking about the hype of the agents. But in order for agents to be successful, you have to manage your context in a very effective way. So there's services that we provide around this and some really great tools to manage this within the Microsoft stack that we could talk through. And then the top layer is the agentic layer. And this is where the agents, like I worked through, those third party or even those custom or first party agents now are using that context to reason. And then they're going down into the system of record to actually perform that action. Where it used to be a human reading an email and then they reason and then they use their context that they know. I know my processes, I know my relationships, I know like the recent and relevant things that my team has said to me. Now I need to go and do something. Now it's an agent doing that with a human in the loop saying, well, let's check and validate that this is going to be right. All of the information, did it pull from the right things? Is this going to be like the correct action to take? Okay, yes, now let's go. Humans as managers of this entire process. And that's where you get a lot of the efficiency and a lot of the fun, honestly, of a lot of the technology. So this is the new technology stack. It's no longer just system of record and then people interacting with that application. Now it's the context that's generating and floating around that's being managed in an effective way that can be processed by an agent to go and perform something. So this is really how we're thinking about it, is kind of this new stack that has evolved. And it's even more important than ever for humans to be injected at all components of the stack to be able to make sure that things are happening as they should, rather than just letting agents run off the guardrails. So how do you get started? You understand the framework now. You have the level 1, the level 2, the level 3. It all makes sense for all the things that you should be doing, but where are you going to walk away from this presentation and actually go do something to get started? So I've broken it down into a couple of easy ways. So first, you want to assess that foundation. So you want to understand this, initial state that you're currently at. Like, what is my as-is state of my business and my overall system architecture? Then you're going to want to pilot some inquiry AI, and then you want to deploy your first agent. So this way you can see that value coming from having an autonomous agent that's built on a sound structural foundation that you have trusted and accurate inquiry AI coming out of, and then you can perform processes. That little process right there is going to be very exciting because you're going to see the true ROI from deploying the agent. So starting with this step 1, how do you assess your business? And this is how we do it when we work with businesses. We come in and we build out all of these models and really do the documentation. So don't worry if this is overwhelming. We can help you with that. But you want to map your business. You want to understand legal structure, like in the blue here on the right, that's legal entities. And then the yellow is your inventory locations. On the right in red is your customers. On the left in green is your vendors. And then all the arrows that exist between them are all the transactions that are happening, whether sales orders or purchase orders or intercompany processing between legal entities. You want to map this out very clearly. If you do not understand your business, an agent will not understand your business. So you want to document all of the processes that are happening and get the full picture of your organization. Then you're going to want to look at your current systems. So kind of looking underneath the hood of your business model and saying, okay, what's my current system of record for financials? What's my current system of record for my customers, for my vendors, for my items, for my bill materials, my routing operations? What is my system for e-commerce, for payroll, for benefits management, for time and expenses, for travel, for productivity tools? Literally all of these things. You want to be asking these questions and documenting this out and understanding all the integration points that exist between them. What you're going to find most oftentimes is a pretty fragmented system. everything kind of all over the place. And that's okay. Like that is totally normal, especially as you get into marketing for the marketing people that are out there. There's a lot of systems that typically get brought up into that. But you want to understand who is using these systems, what is the information in these individual systems, what are their functions, and then are these cloud or agent accessible or not? If you have on-premise systems, it is much more difficult for you to inject an agent to perform processes with that system. It is very, very difficult. And so you want these systems to be accessible to an AI. And what I mean by accessible, these are technology tools. So they're going to not just be able to talk to it, right? They actually need to use some sort of technology to integrate with it. So REST APIs, so the application programming interfaces, or even better, MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. You can think of Model Context Protocol, or MCP, as basically the common connector for agents. So think of the USB plug for connecting agents across any system now. And you want that modern connection. So that way your agent is able to go in and reason over the data that's in there and get easier access to it. And then you want to look at how you can consolidate these systems as well. So this will give you that current understanding of your business and then your system side. And then you're going to be able to overlay those on top of one another and say, okay, this system is accessible by AI and our people are knowledgeable and trained up in this area. We probably have a good starting point for doing inquiry AI and then maybe doing an autonomous agent. So that's how you can pick your starting point. You can say, maybe our finance department is using a cloud-based ERP. They are tracking and they have their processes really detailed out. We have our people very organized there. We have our champions there. The technology is all there. Now let's identify where we can inject that inquiry AI, validate that we've got accurate information, deploy a use case of a autonomous agent and see that value. What that's going to do is it's going to build a business case for you. It's going to allow you to go to leadership, or if you are leadership, it's going to prove to you that you have value from implementing this technology. And then that is going to allow you to build champions as well, because people are going to get very excited about what's possible there and want to roll it out across all the other mundane processes that exist, or I like to call it the drag processes that exist: drafting, research, analysis, and grunt work. And often there's a lot of grunt work that this could be done on. So you want to identify that starting point. And once you identify that, you can move forward with the pilot. And then also you'll doing the assessment, you're going to see all the areas that you now need to deploy cloud-based technology for a certain, on-premise server or on-premise business function. You need to document certain areas of your business that have no procedures in place, or, people aren't organized in that area. It's going to give you a very clear roadmap of the things that you need to do to really take advantage of this technology. So it's doing this in this way, assessing your foundation first, and then picking a single starting point is really going to open up the floodgates for what you need to do from an IT roadmap standpoint. And of course, we do this for free for customers, so you don't need to pay us to have us come in and help you identify these things or build out these assessments. We are happy to help you with that. Okay, so what I would love to do is open it up for questions. And I've got one for you all here that I would love to help answer and provide some guidance on. I found a lot of success doing this, for other sessions of asking this question. What process would you automate today if you could with an agent? And I'll maybe give you some guidance on how that's possible for you. So I'll start here with the questions that have been coming in the chat, and then we'll be able to turn it over, and would love to get some ideas of scenarios, and I can give you feedback on how we would tackle that. Let's see. I don't see any in the Q&A.
It looks like we do have one in the chat, actually, Mason, from Lee King. Lee asks, are there any 2 or 3 industries in which mid-sized businesses seem to be advancing at a relatively faster pace in terms of adoption and measuring productivity?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of the typical tip of the spear industries. So obviously like technology, financial services, some of those that the industries that are more like when there is a new technology, they are adopting it first. Like us internal, for example, we are a technology company. So we're customer zero in everything that I'm showing you here today. So certainly those industries are moving much faster. where we're seeing a lot of the growth right now is within the areas like retail and manufacturing and distribution. Those customers where they thought that this technology didn't apply to them, and now they're seeing the benefits. It's really scaling very quickly there. The ones that are the laggards are kind of the typical laggards, right? So regulated industry. So ones with like pharmaceuticals and FDA approvals, and government as well. So a lot of laggards kind of in that space, just because there's so many hindrances and so much red tape to get through from a compliance standpoint. But that's kind of what we're seeing is technology, of course, like that is moving very fast. And then companies that are financial services, and then retail, manufacturing, distribution, inventory goods, consumer goods, is moving very quickly now. Like that's the cusp of what we're seeing, where a lot of the back office stuff is being done using these agents. And then the laggards are those, government and kind of more quality constrained industries. Great question, Lee.
Thanks. I want to posit something to you real quick. So just
Yeah.
looking at this slide, what process would you automate today if you could? You have done this process and your company has done this process for literally hundreds of
Yeah.
companies. Generally, what answers rise to the top to this question? What do manufacturers generally answer this question with? And
Mhm.
is that the right place for them to start, whatever their
Yeah.
answer happens to be?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so most of the time it's like the hardest thing, right? It's like a very specific, oh, I've got this conveyor that has a machine tied to the end of it, and I've got this machine data that's it's almost inaccessible in a way, and it's very difficult to like get it out and reason over it. And so it's kind of a black box. And so people are like, how do I get access to that? But actually, it is really great for AI to take stuff that seems very messy and create reason over it. So while you may have no like understanding of how like the machine interface works, you can pull that data out, tell AI that, hey, this machine is what I'm using, and here's the output that I have. It's going to go look up the manual, understand exactly how to reason over that data, and give you some pretty incredible insights that then you can use to kind of adopt into a process. So that I normally get hit with the very hard questions, and then it's very people are like surprised that you can actually implement it in those areas. Most of the time, people like some of the layups, maybe in like sales and purchasing, like OCR and AP automation has been around for decades now. I mean, back in the early 2010s, I was doing like receipt scanning for an AP automation company. Like that's been around for a long time. So it's normally the stuff people are surprised about is the more hard stuff. Okay, so I do see some questions here that are coming in. This is amazing. So any particular sectors within manufacturing? So I'm assuming this is related to the speed question. So accelerating at a faster pace. I think the non-regulated are moving a lot faster. Like I was kind of saying, consumer products are moving very fast. Typically, things that are more consumer and not B2B are moving faster because they're typically closer to the consumer. So the consumer is demanding more of that from the company. So B2B is often a little bit more, kind of farther away from it. But we're seeing a ton of growth in that area. I mean, our focus is really primarily on, like I said, the big, hairy, scary, complex inventory stuff, the complex manufacturing, the complex distribution scenarios, multi-site or single site even stuff. So those are definitely the segments I'd say that are moving fast. So Justin says, I manage a chemical plant operation. I would love to use AI to measure pH, temperature, flow, pressure, etc., to predict deviations before they develop. Love this. I would also like to use AI to intelligent monitor process yield performance real time. And lastly, I would like to automate on-hand inventory management. I love these. That's exactly how I was saying. It is very surprising what AI is able to do when you give it all of those factors of the pH, temperature, the flow, the pressure, and then you feed it towards even the manuals of the process. And you say and you even transcribe and say, here's the things that I typically look for in this process to find variation. And then it builds a skill of knowing how to find those variations. And then you just run that on a recurring sequence that looks at all of the data. You have to feed it all the data. And then it will do some pretty dramatic things of surface things to you that you otherwise wouldn't have seen. So I think that's actually a good one. I would recommend taking a start at first, just extracting the data, and then putting it into a tool using a paid version. You don't want to use free versions of really any of the tools, because if you are getting it for free, then they are getting something from you. So they are training their models on your data. So you want to do paid versions for these things, but test it out by giving it the data, transcribing and documenting how you would typically look for a variation within that data. And then it will build a skill and you'll be very surprised by that. Same thing with the process yield. And the on-hand inventory management is a very common one that we deal with. I would love to help you with this, honestly. That is a very common scenario of how do we actually track what's happening physically and then match that to the virtual world within our systems. So very common one. And then I know we're at time here. Are we able to go a little bit longer? These are some good questions in here. Emmy, Talisa, I'll ask you guys.
I'd love for you to answer Dennis's question about the platforms that can be used.
This is perfect. Here. So we are a Microsoft shop primarily. We are Inner Circle partner for the last 10 years consecutively, done hundreds of implementations in the Microsoft space. But that doesn't mean that we don't take advantage of the tools like OpenClaw. So Microsoft actually just deployed 2 days ago. You should look it up. It's called Microsoft Scout. And it is a Microsoft wrapper around OpenClaw. I'm a huge OpenClaw fan, by the way. I think you can probably tell. But it allows you to secure all of the operations that OpenClaw is performing, and it's embedded inside of your Microsoft tenant, meaning that you can see using things like Purview, like Microsoft Purview and Microsoft Defender on any interaction that it's having. The biggest concern with OpenClaw is security. I mean, most of the stuff like the Molt book and the I think it's the Molt Hub, which contains all the skills for OpenClaw, like 70% of those were actually malicious skills. So you want to use a platform that, and it would like steal your API keys and things like that. You want to use a platform that is secure like Microsoft. Like this technology is moving so quickly, you want to have this stuff locked down. So long story short, we are primarily focused on Microsoft, but we do take advantage of like all the technologies, just leveraging also the Microsoft ecosystem.
Thank you. We are over time. I know this is a topic we could all talk about for much longer. But for those of you who are still with us, just a reminder that we'll send a recap email tomorrow. We'll be sure to include Mason's contact information there so that you can continue the conversation if there were some questions that you didn't have answered today. But for today, we want to say thank you for joining us and engaging with this topic, and really for all you do for North Carolina as a whole and driving our economy forward. And Mason, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and we learned a lot.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And thank you.
We have a couple of events coming up too. For those of you who are still in the room with us, we'd love to see you at those. And before you sign out completely today, you'll be prompted to complete a survey about today's webinar. So we would appreciate that feedback as well. But thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you next time.